acotar or Hi friends, welcome to our Crows Before Bros YouTube channel. If you're new here, my name is Randy. I do this channel with my friend Lauren. If you've been around for a little bit, you know that we usually do videos together, but this is my first solo one, and Lauren has some solo stuff coming too. We got lots going on. We're very, very excited. As my first video, I just want to acknowledge that commentary style YouTubers are now my heroes. I have already filmed this entirely once and then felt so weird. Let's do a quick reading check-in from when I last talked with y'all. I actually finished everything I said I was going to in our last video, which I don't think has ever happened. I usually over-dedicate myself a little bit. So I finished the entire series of Unfortunate Events. I also read Archer's Voice. I also read the only nonfiction book I've literally read all this year, and it was Cultish by Amanda Montell. I really, really enjoyed it. I did not anticipate being so invested in a nonfic this year, but it was great. I really enjoyed it. The only other thing to really go into before I get started is that Midnight's came out! I've been bopping to Midnight since it came out. It has some true bangers. Friggin' Midnight Rain is I've listened to that song probably bordering 100 times since it came out. Oh my gosh, I saw a post and I shared it, and it was Will Solace and Nico D'Angelo from the Percy Jackson universe. Mwah. The true hero of October, though, I must say, is Jack Antonoff. Between Midnights and the 1975s being funny in a foreign language, Jack Antonoff really is doing the most. So thank you, Jack Antonoff, my hero, honestly, the superstar of October. So in this video, I'm going to be talking about a book that is hugely popular, not just on Book Talk, but just in general. Everyone loves this book. It's literally everywhere. It features a young human woman who falls in love with a man who looks young, but he's actually centuries old and immortal. He's very strong. He's very fast. He has great hair. He's the most beautiful man she's ever seen. They fall in love after him showing that he has some humanity a couple times. Her eyes are open to a whole new world, where she realizes that the thing that she thought was a monster is actually just some hot dude. No, I'm not talking about Twilight. This week, we're finally talking about acotar. Yes, folks, I did it. Finally read this book. I've been saying for probably 2 years that I would read acotar, and I keep putting it off. So let's get into it a bit. So acotar, or A Court of Thorns and Roses. I literally every single time say A Court of Thrones and Roses, and that's wrong. A Court of Thorns and Roses. Sarah J. Maas's 2015 novel. It's the first in a well-loved ongoing series. Comes in at about 419 pages or so. Definitely a romatasy, the crossover between a romance and a fantasy. Largely just a romance set in a fantasy world. It kind of toes the line between young adult and new adult. This one is definitely towing the line. I know the future ones delve more into new adult, and this has been a big thing where, because this one is kind of young adult, it sometimes gets sorted into that genre at bookstores, and then people are do not let children read this. So it almost feels a bit ridiculous to be giving a summary of this book, seeing as it seems like I'm maybe the last person on earth to ever have read it. It's been on my radar for literal years. Every time I'd ask for book recommendations from friends, there's always somebody who just appeared to be have you read acotar? So anyway, summary. The novel follows Feyre, who is a 19-year-old human woman. She's kind of the sole breadwinner of her home after her mother dies? I don't remember. Her mother's not around, and her dad has a disability, and so she's kind of the sole breadwinner. One day she goes out into the forest. She's Katniss Everdeen, hunting down things with a bow and arrow, and she comes across a very large wolf, and she goes, I wonder if that wolf's a fairy. And then she's well, probably not, and then just kills him anyway. They eat up the wolf, they sell his pelt. A big scary wolf man literally knocks down her door and tells her the original big scary wolf that she is now munched down on was in fact a fairy, and now there's a treaty in place where it's a life for a life, so her life now belongs to him. He decides to be a gracious big wolf man and take her back to his palace, force her to live kind of like a queen, which seems like a weird trade-off for murder. Here we learn that the new, bigger, meaner wolfman is actually named Tamlin. He's a high fairy lord. He's kind of the lord of the spring court. There's 7 courts in total, but this book only really focuses on the spring court. Feyre is obviously like pretty pissed about the setup. She's kind of suddenly removed from her family. He also buys her paints, so then she's like, oh, I guess you're not so bad. He goes to a Michael's and she's like, wow. Feyre also learns that there is like kind of this blight or curse, and she never learns the details, but it includes everyone in the court has these like masks stuck to their face. They all have their powers diminished, but they're not like totally wiped out. They have like still some degree of powers. Feyre, despite having like murdered a man, selling his skin for money, eating him, literally turning him into beef jerky, or I guess wolf jerky. So a mini spoiler moment, I'll maybe put little like chapter boop, boop. This will be a spoilery section for like kind of the back end of the book here. You can hop back in the next section. I'm going to kind of condense all my spoilers into this one little chunk. Tamlin and Feyre start having feelings for each other. You know, they're making out, they're hooking up, they're whatever, and then suddenly he's like, okay, you have to leave now. And sends her back to the human world. She goes back to the human world, kind of realizes something is amiss. She runs back. We get a whole chapter with lots of exposition from a side character explaining the whole curse that has to do with like this chick Amarantha, who's like very powerful, wanted to date Tamlin, and then when he said no, she cursed him. So yeah, she does what any rejected woman would do. She curses his entire land. The curse is like really specific. Tamlin has to have a human woman who hates fairies fall in love with him before 7 times 7 years are up. I told my husband this and he's like, why can't they just do the math? It's just 49 years. It's not that wild. Like, just do the math. Feyre kind of gets all this information from the side character. She runs off to Amarantha's lair, kind of takes on this challenge to do 3 tasks or solve a riddle. I feel like this is simultaneously where the book really picks up and becomes interesting. Like, the tasks were interesting, they were fun to read about. I think I would have maybe liked to see a bit more of like this actual kind of action part of the book. While simultaneously, the riddle is like so cringy. I literally like, I hated it. I hated it so much. The answer to the riddle is love. I think like if Amarantha wanted to defeat a human, why not give a riddle that a human would not be able to solve? Like, make it very specific to fairy life. Don't just be like, the answer is love. That's stupid. She rectifies the curse, but Amarantha, in a fit of rage, kills Feyre, and then everyone donates a sparkle to her, I guess, and now she's a high fae. So acotar is a Beauty and the Beast retelling. A friend of mine told me that it's not very obvious that it's a Beauty and the Beast retelling, but I really felt like it was. Girl is held captive against her will, is wooed with the power of Stockholm Syndrome and art supplies. Instead of the court being cursed to turn into like a candelabra and a teapot, they just get cursed to have a mask on their face, I guess. And their powers are diminished, but I mean, how powerful are you as a teapot anyways? Even like the cause of the curse being rejection in the Beauty and the Beast, it's that he thought she was like this ugly person, right? And was mean to her, and then she cursed him to be ugly. I think it's like odd that the theme of the original Beauty and the Beast is like the classic, like, don't judge a book by its cover. Someone can be really ugly on the outside and really just like precious beautiful on the inside. And I feel like this book kind of deleted that theme entirely. There was really no challenges for Feyre to overcome in falling in love with Tamlin. He's not like so normal from a human. He is hot, he just has a mask on his face. So I feel like that kind of overall theme was scrapped. I often feel like retellings honestly just don't really vibe with me. I'm struggling to even think of one that I'm like, yeah, like, that one did it for me. 5 stars. I feel like retellings are just kind of like, meh. I was watching actually a Gina Lucia video about this. It has summed up, she talks about how retellings aim to make us feel nostalgic for the original thing, in this case Beauty and the Beast, while also giving it like a new spin and taking away maybe some of the more problematic parts of the original. But because you've changed it so much, you don't hit the nostalgia that you want from a retelling. Discussing retelling really is what gets me into my main complaint about acotar, and that's that the concept of acotar is obviously like, what if the Beauty and the Beast happened in a world where instead of a beast, they were fae? I feel like this book had a very distinct lack of fae in it. So the world feels like relatively lush in like actual physical environments. I feel like there's scenes where she's going to like a pond and like bathing in moonlight, and it's so beautiful. You know, those kind of actual physical environments are like beautifully written. Beyond that, it felt like Sarah Maas kind of took all the things about fae that make them like a unique monster to talk about in a story and just like kind of toss them away because they're a bit complicated. She like pretty much wrote off all the fae lore as fake news. So those things like fairies never being able to tell a lie and humans not being able to drink fairy food and all those things are just kind of like brushed away, which I was really disappointed by. An example of a fae book I really liked and the world really likes is The Cruel Prince. Oh, I think I have it here. I'm gonna dig it up. Cruel Prince by Holly Black. A lot of the tension in this book comes from the fact that Cardan is not capable of lying where Jude is. I think you build a lot of interesting conversations and tension in there. An example, have I told you how hideous you look tonight? Cardan asked, leaning back into the elaborately carved chair, the warmth of his words turning the question into something like a compliment. No, I say, glad to be annoyed back into the present. Tell me. I can't. Ugh! It's so good. He obviously is like trying to make her feel like he's not interested in her. So he has to kind of spin things and tell them in an interesting way for her to believe that. Instead, with acotar, it kind of felt like Sarah J. Maas just wanted big, sexy men with none of the complications that come with like fae lore. As I kind of hinted towards the beginning, this book literally could have been about vampires, it could have been about werewolves, it could have been about any big, sexy, immortal man. So yeah, I almost wish she had just gone with like their monsters or their shifters or their some other thing instead of just writing off all the fae lore for funsies. There's also a couple minor writing choices that didn't sit well with me. I might not have noticed had Lauren not mentioned it to me because she's already read acotar before, but like Sarah J. Maas uses the word ribbons probably on average once every 10 pages for the first half of this book to describe everything. I've been shredded to ribbons. He was torn to ribbons. The clouds were ribbons today. Like everything is ribbons. And I'm like, oh my God. It does quite calm down by the back half of the book, but it made it hard. And I'm like to a point where it like started coming up and I'd be like, you can't say this word ever again. You're banned. Okay, also, let me find it, because there is a choice here that like made me laugh out loud. Amarantha, the villain of the book, has kind of tortured and killed a girl in Feyre's place. And so she's kind of taunting Feyre now. And she says, fate stirs the cauldron in strange ways. Perhaps my darling Claire had to die in order for me to have some true amusement with you. My bowels turned watery. What? Did she like literally immediately get diarrhea thinking about torture? Does Feyre have IBS? Explain yourself, Sarah Maas. Overall, I'd say the plot was a bit like sloggy and meandered right up until the back like 20%. I feel like it was just like kind of lacking up until then. It does pick up in the last little bit when we get to challenges that Feyre has to complete. Even if I like groaned at the solution to the riddle, I like cringe internally just thinking about it. It was so just like, do better. With the exception of that riddle, I did find the back end of this book a bit less of a slog to get through. We had some interesting characters added. I would say that the saving grace for this book is its characters. Feyre is a very strong, independent woman. She's a little wishy-washy, but I can also sympathize with her mixed feelings. She is 19. Like, when I was 19, I was stupid. We were all stupid. If you're 19, I'm sorry, but you're stupid. You're probably wonderful. but you'll look back and be like, wow, I was stupid. Because that's how life goes. Feyre never listens to anyone in any circumstance. There's like a scene where like 12 people are like, don't leave your bedroom tonight, bad things are happening. And she's like, guess I'll get a midnight snack. Like, she's stupid and she doesn't listen to anyone, but like, I can see where she's coming from. She doesn't want to be controlled. She's already being held captive. Tamlin is like a little bit wonderbread for me. He's just boring. Additionally, I think part of why it was hard for me to like really get invested in Tamlin is that the series is so popular online that I know Tamlin is not endgame. Unless Sarah J Maas really goes off the rails. It made me feel a lot like, okay, well, a lot of this book like is for nothing. With Tamlin and Feyre, I really felt like there was no threat to their relationship. Nesta's already my fave. She had approximately 3 pages of existence in this novel, and I am like, yes, give me more. I know that we see more of Nesta in the future, so I'm very excited about that. There's a couple points I tagged in this book where it's like, ha ha ha, that's just like a funny little foreshadowing thing. So I thought it was funny when it says, Nesta squared her shoulders. Don't bother, I don't think I'd be particularly fond of fairies. Joke's on you, Nesta. I also enjoyed Rysand. Obviously, they are going to have like a connection going forward. I know that every single person is going to come out of the woodworks on the internet to tell me that acotar, you have to slog through acotar to get to Akamath, which is the best one. And like, I'm going to read Akamath, and I often understand that particularly fantasy novel series, the first book is just like world building and setting up a situation. So like, I'm going to read Akamath, but honestly, I feel like I don't have super high hopes for it. So, rating time. When I first read this book, I gave it a 3.5. If you follow my bookstagram, you'll see that I gave it a 3.5. I'm now maybe like a week removed from finishing it, and I think I would bump that down to like maybe a 2.75. I'll round it up to a 3. It's just not great, folks. It passes, but barely. Another way this book feels similar to Twilight is like the cult fan base around it. Those of you who are my age, maybe a bit older, we all remember the 2008 Twilight era. Everyone was like, Team Jacob, Team Edward. If you were of the different opinion of somebody else, it was like a big blowout moment. If anyone had a negative critique of Twilight in 2008, the fan base would just like come for you. And now, what's math? 14 years removed from that, we can look at Twilight and say, okay, yeah, there are some critiques we have of this as a society that don't hold up. Even if you still really enjoy Twilight, you can recognize that there's like problems with the writing. The acotar fanbase, I think, has similar vibes of like, they will gut you if you don't have the same opinion as them. I've seen the phrases like Team Rysand, Tamlin apologist thrown around on the internet. It's wild to me. I hope once the hype dies down a bit that we're able to have something more of like a discussion around acotar and looking and being like, some of this doesn't hold up as well as we think, even if we have really strong feelings and love for the novel. I promise I will eventually read Akamath. It's just behind the camera there. It's staring at me every single day. If that one's also a flop for me though, I'll probably stop the series. I just feel like there's so many books in the world to read, and I would rather spend some time reading ones that I'm super hyped about. And I feel like so many books have been flops for me lately that like, I need to be excited about a book. I feel like there's lots of book talk romantasies that I have started that just like haven't quite done it for me. Like, I've read now acotar, I've read the first From Blood and Ash, I've read the entire Touch of Darkness series, but none of them have really been like what I wanted out of this kind of romantasy genre. If you guys have any suggestions that are not like those huge book talk ones, please let me know. I've been searching and coming up empty every time I try these book talk ones. I want to yearn, people. Coming up for reading. So we have about 2 months left of the year. I'm currently sitting at 130 books read this year. My original goal was 52. Oops. So now I'm hoping I can maybe hit 156 by the end of the year, and then I'll have tripled that. So I've got 26 books to go in 2 months, so we'll see if it actually happens. But right now I'm reading The Deal by Elle Kennedy, I'm reading Pride and Prejudice, I've also got Lore by Alexandra Bracken, and I have the Finlay Donovan series on my like immediate TBR. I do think I'm going to try and sneak in some dark academia reads for November, because like the November vibe is dark academia. It's so gloomy and like bring out my turtlenecks. I just love a dark academia vibes. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Let me know your thoughts on acotar. Are you a Tamlin apologist? Do you think he's not just wonderbread? Do you love it? Do you hate it? Have you read it? If somebody else out there has not read acotar, please let me know, because I really do feel like I'm the last person on earth. Please like, subscribe, comment. Lauren and I both get genuinely so excited when we see those things. We love you guys. We're very, very appreciative of that. Give me your romatasy recommendations, because I'm literally dying. I need something good, y'all. Lauren's gonna be coming with a solo video sometime soon that I'm also very excited about. Hers is gonna be so funny. We hope to see you guys next time. Bye!